There's Masters. Great chance here! That does it! Steve McGavin! And for the first time, Colchester United have won a major final.
Still Garcia, finally the company arrives and it's in! It's a freak-out goal from Ricardo Carvalho. Richard Garcia wants the credit and the shock is on at the bridge.
And it's promotion for Colchester United. They've made it into the Championship for the first time in 69 years.
Porter, being held, there is Porter, and that's Walker!
Hello and welcome to the Beyond the Barside podcast, the podcast that discusses all things Colchester United. A huge thank you to those that are subscribing and listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple and all of the other different places where you can listen to your podcast. You're doing us a huge favour there. Don't forget to like, comment, do all of those usual things to help get the podcast out there to as many U's fans as possible. And we are in another double game week. Tonight, Colchester United will host Cambridge United, the other U's, in a League Two fixture, hoping to build on our win away at Shrewsbury. And that is where the podcast is going to start. I caught up with Si, Dave and Glenn Pennyfather to discuss the Shrewsbury game. Welcome back to Beyond the Barside. I am joined by U's fans Dave. Si will be coming in and out. It's an interesting introduction for Si. And we are joined by BBC Essex Sports, Glenn Pennyfather. How are you doing, guys?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. Thank you
guys.
very much for inviting me on. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's nice to be on the other side of things.
I was going to say, your pro-South End agenda will get short shrift, Glenn.
I think I've had sort of a few guests on so far in the podcast, and the two ex-players that I've had on the podcast have both played for Southend, Glenn. So
okay,
there you go, yourself and Roy McDonough. So
yeah, brilliant. I bet Roy was full value, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. That is out now. So anyone that hasn't listened to it, please do. It's good value for sure. But obviously, we're talking about Saturday's game. Colchester United got our first league win of the season away at Shrewsbury. Dave, how would you sum up the performance?
It was a very comfortable win without ever really clicking in the top gear, I think. And as the cliche goes, it's always good to win when you're not playing at your best. But I thought, we had complete control of the game, especially in the second half, just without it was the lack of quality from wide became glaring at points because we were getting to a lot of good positions and just having Payne start. Mm-hmm. And the way he knitted everything together, could keep possession, sort of bridge the gap between midfield and the forwards and the wingers. We had a lot of opportunities to make things happen, but just didn't quite take them. I think we nearly nailed the starting lineup, didn't we?
Yeah.
Hadn't been for Anderson.
You nearly nailed the starting lineup.
Cheers.
I like that you've said we. That's very gracious of you.
Right,
but you nearly nailed the starting.
It's still early on in the pod, so we're all in it together at the moment.
I got it right. I was there as well, remember?
Oh, Si chimes in now.
Yeah.
When I'm getting my moment.
Si said Macy was going to play, so he was bang on with that.
Right. No, but if it hadn't been for Anderson's, it looked minor. I mean, he was on the pitch doing a session. It looked like a fitness session. I think it was a fitness test because it was when we got in, it was at 2:00. And he joined in with the shooting drills and everything. So whatever it is, doesn't seem. But I would not have picked Gordon to start if I'd have known that Anderson wasn't going to be available. And to be honest, I don't think he did himself any favours.
What do you think was the issue with Gordon's performance?
Just a lack of directness, a lack of intent when he got the ball. 2 or 3 occasions I can think of in the first half. He was one-on-one with the fullback and just didn't commit to do anything really. Mm-hmm. Whether it be just whip an early ball in across the 6-yard box there's a couple of times we had their defenders facing their goal, could have got a ball in. Didn't beat the man at any point. And to be fair, it wasn't just him. I don't think Edwards really beat his man at any point either. So, and that's a bit of a worry. He's not been quite his best, but still early on in the season. But yeah, I think Gordon. I'd be surprised if he was if he started again on Tuesday if Anderson had, because the first thing Oscar Thorne did when he came on, sort of jumping ahead to the second half, got his head down, knocked the ball past his defender, got a shot away. He got a crossing. Actually, Lisby was actually free in the middle. He really should have squared it for quite an easy goal. But what he did within a minute of coming on, might have been longer than that. Just my memory, it was over 24 hours ago, so I can't remember much about it. He exactly what Anderson would have been doing, Lisby did, and Thorne did. And so that was something we need to work on. Again, it was a good game. It was a good game to iron those things out. Shrewsbury I think they're bang in trouble. Shrewsbury.
Okay. Yeah. You did predict it with the way you said that Scully was the marquee signing. They've come down. They haven't really reinvested in the squad.
So they didn't show anything, and the atmosphere around their stadium felt very 2023-24 around the job serve. So they were getting pelted, especially in the middle of the second half. And then I thought again, the back four were all excellent, and it was a good game for Powell, I think, to come into, because there was a couple of times in the first half it allowed him to grow into it, being against the team on the rack, not with the confidence, because there was a couple of times he sort of wasn't. He was up against the physical challenge, and there's a couple of times where he sort of spent a bit too long on the ball, but he grew into the game from that. Against better teams, he might not have had the opportunity to grow into the game, but I think he did, and they all performed well at back four. I think Jack Tucker, again, I mean this in a really positive way. I don't think he got out of third gear, because he's in such good form. He found everything so easy. On the ball, off the ball position, he had such a good game. Again, he's turning into a real presence at the back. And Hunt was solid, much better to see him on the right. Actually, than being on the right, so we didn't actually consider him being on the right when he does sort of invert a little bit and maybe have to come inside, because he's so good with his left foot as well. It does give us more options, gives him more options with where that ball can go. So that was another positive. And Flanagan did well. He did have a 15-minute spell in the second half that actually led up to our second goal. I think he got bored and something in his head snapped, and he kept on just giving the ball to them. Did you see that, Si?
Yeah, I think he was just trying to get them involved, wasn't he? He felt sorry for them.
It was about 5 or 6 times, and I don't know if he was like really wanting to show his ex-team who he didn't really leave on the best of terms with, sort of how positive he was, but it was mad. And then quite simply one of the strangest goals I've seen for Lisby. It was he plays the ball across. You can see it's going to be intercepted. It's one of those. You got your hands on your head, just halfway through a swear word, and then you see Lisby's in, and then he slots it home. It was fantastic. Those are the kind of goals we never score. Those kind of goals we normally let in. Those kind of goals.
That was that was Tom Flanagan's vision. You see, he knew the angle. He knocked off their player right at Lisby's feet.
Yeah, the angle sort of thing. Yeah, it was great. And then it was good to see. And as someone pointed out on YouTube,
you got dug out on YouTube, didn't you, Dave?
I think it was good natured. There was some friendly. There was some.
I don't know. He sent me some private messages that were not complimentary at all.
We don't want to know anything about it. But yeah, as I said on the previous pod, when what does Tavide need to do to get to the next level? When he goes clean through, I don't think he's going to score. Then obviously, I'll take full credit for him going clean through, slotting it away beautifully like a classic number 9. And I also wasn't impressed with Akande against Oxford, but he came on, and in the middle, I thought he had a bit of space, because after they went down to 10 men, obviously, but I thought he actually on the ball, his close control and his forward thinking, very forward thinking when he got it. I thought he actually did really well when he came on in a 10. So yeah, overall, don't think we really clicked into top gear at any point, but a very comfortable win.
Yeah, so we were speaking as well, Glenn. You spoke about how you're a big fan of Ben Perry, and you think he's going to be sort of the player that gets stuck in to
Yeah.
everything. He comes off with an injury. The reports of him sort of being in a knee brace after the game. How big a loss do you think that is for Colchester, losing someone like Ben Perry?
Well, I think it's a huge loss because obviously Danny has great faith in the lad. He's brought him in from Forest, as we know. And with Jamie McDonnell last year, I think, Jamie McDonnell give you that platform as well from the middle of midfield. And obviously we know he's gone. He's gone back to Forest, and I understand he's gone on to Mansfield now, I believe. But I mean, Ben Perry has come in, but I think he adds a little bit more than Jamie McDonnell. I was a huge fan of Jamie McDonnell, but I think Ben Perry's got a little bit more about him possibly than Jamie McDonnell, and that'll be a huge loss. Although I will say you do have a great replacement in Arthur Reed. I thought Arthur Reed did well on Tuesday. I was at the Oxford game. I thought he did really well. But I think the biggest plus out of it all, I know Ben Perry's a huge loss, but you give it away and you take it with the other one, whatever it may be. You've got Jack Payne back. And Jack Payne is a huge bonus for you. I just thought on Tuesday he was doing a lot of his work deep because he wasn't sticking, especially in the first half. Jaden Williams got isolated a lot, I thought, against Oxford, and Jack was having to come quite deep to do a lot of his work. But if you can get him them little pockets of space, because he's a fantastic technician, as we know, and you can get him in those pockets, and we see that with Samson's goal. And I think, David, you've touched on it. You've taken credit for him for finishing, obviously. But, you can't underestimate how good a first touch that was to break him clear of the back line. It was a fantastic first touch. It could not have been any better for him. And then he slotted it home, which kind of settled the nerves, I think. And I know Danny said in his interview afterwards that he knew at half-time he'd go on to win the game. But I think that's born out of what you were saying a little bit, David, just the atmosphere around the ground at Shrewsbury. I think you can feel that when you go there as the opposition. You can feel they're there for the taking. And Danny knew that, and it was just a matter of you grinding out that result. And it's important, obviously, Samson's goal. And Kyrie, as you said, it was a strange old goal, but he had to be alert to that. And some players are on their heels for things like that, but he wasn't. He was alive. He had his mindset right, and he burst on it, and it was a great finish in the end. And once you get that, because at 1-0, it doesn't matter what side you're playing. If you're playing a side that's really struggling, you're always under a little bit of pressure because you could lose a freak goal yourself. It could be an absolute worldie. It could be a penalty. It could be anything. But that cushion obviously settles you right down. And in the end, it was a great win. But Ben Perry's going to be a huge miss, and hopefully he won't be out for too long.
Yeah, and as you say, the replacement, obviously during the game, was Arthur Reed, and we could be expecting Arthur Reed to play a slightly different game than what he's used to and have that sort of deeper role to sort of cover Ben Perry. I don't know whether he's going to look to sort of push Ronnie Harvey on a little bit ahead of schedule and bring him into the first team a bit more, now that we've not got the luxury of Ben Perry. But it
looks like Gate might be closer to coming back than what I thought.
Yeah. Just sorry to jump in there, just to sort of my little 10 pence. The other options also you have got is pushing Tucker into that holding midfield role like he did with McDonnell was away last season. And then you've got Baldwin's come back in to partnership with Flanagan's centre-backs. Or, let's say, got Ronnie Harvey. Don't get me wrong, Arthur Reed's done fantastically just come on, but I just don't think him, Bishop and Payne play well together against a contested midfield against a good side. They're all just too similar. So it'll be interesting to see. For me personally, I'd probably push Tucker up there, put Baldwin with Flanagan, as we've seen he can play there, and then bring Harvey in.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Tucker's just playing so well. And it's just, even if we are maybe a bit short, just to have that solidity at the back as we've got it, I think you've got to leave Tucker here because he's doing so well. And I think
because you are so strong at the back, I think Danny will be very reluctant to break up that partnership of Tucker and Flanagan. So they've got such a great understanding now.
Yeah, sure. And Simon Clancy.
And your first clean sheet as well. I mean
it's nice.
That was important. And I think he he say he wanted 23 this year or 25 clean sheets?
25. Like how many games we got? 44. We can get 44.
Yeah.
So, why not?
Yeah.
But I think, against the better team, whether Arthur Reed and Teddy Bishop can play together. That's the thing, like you said, Glenn. Arthur Reed played really well against Oxford.
Yeah.
But every time Arthur Reed's come on, he has played well. His form's been really good this year. But as I think we're all kind of in agreement, if Bishop's fit, Bishop starts and they play the same role.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday, because I think Cambridge are going to be pretty strong.
The interest, obviously, coming from your perspective, Glenn, you've obviously mentioned how talented Arthur Reed is.
Yeah.
And Dave said whenever he's been called upon, he's played really well. He hasn't put a foot wrong since he's come in. But then the general perspective is when Teddy Bishop's fit, Teddy Bishop plays. How do you manage a player like Arthur Reed that hasn't done anything wrong? They're playing completely where you want them to, but they're still not going to start because you've got someone like Teddy Bishop. How do you deal with something like that?
Well, I think Danny, he kind of creates an environment where it's all inclusive, because he's a great believer, isn't he, in finishers and starters and finishers. Sorry, that's what he talks about, doesn't he? Quite a lot, and I think I can understand that, and I suppose that was borne out with Kyrese. I suppose over the couple of games where he's come on, his impact has been great, and I'm sure that's in Danny's mind, especially early season with Kyrese's pace to come on and do that and make that such an impact. Now, Arthur Reed might be a slightly different player to that, where he might need to start the game to be at his best. I'm not quite sure, but I know as a player, as an ex-player, if I'm not in the side, all I can do is do my best when I've got the shirt. If I can come off that pitch, look in the mirror and go, I've done my best today, and it's down to the manager now. If the manager fancies another player over me, then that's fine. But I think because of this environment and this mindset that Danny's created amongst the group, I think they all feel involved, and I think they all feel they've got a part to play. Now, whether it's starting or whether it's finishing, whatever it may be, I think they feel quite comfortable with that. I think what would annoy players more is if they've had a good spell in the team where, they might be in somebody's place, i.e. Ben Perry's, and then as soon as Ben Perry's back fit, he comes straight back into the side where, I'm a great believer, you're in the side on merit. If you're playing well, you should have the shirt. I'm a great believer in that. And I think that's where you would get your problems. I think while players are playing well and you're not in the side, you have very little argument, but you're still playing your part. And I think, as I say, I think Danny creates that sort of environment.
That's a good point, actually. And Jack Tucker's a good example of that. I think Jack Tucker came in on loan last year expecting to play more games than he did. But Kelleher really showed the form he hadn't shown before, and was absolutely deserving of his place in the squad.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, like I said, it leads to exactly what you're saying, Glenn. Tucker's sort of jumped at the chance to come back to the club. He's slotted straight back in, and he's now doing what Kelleher did. Kelleher did last year. So I think it's just one of the it's a bit of a, might become one of our catchphrases, but it's just one of the reasons we're so lucky to have the Cowleys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, they understand players, they understand the mindset of footballers. And it is about an inclusive squad nowadays, isn't it? When I played, if you weren't in the first 11, you had the amp regardless. You needed to be in that first 11. I think when I first started, there was only one sub anyway. And now you've got 7 to choose from. So, I mean, for players nowadays, and I think they was talking about the Premiership today, they're used to that. They're used to a squad. They're used to sometimes not being in the side. They're used to rotation. They're used to being impact players, all those sorts of things that make a good squad and obviously, hopefully, a successful squad at the end of the day. Because it is a strong squad at the moment, and you have Colchester United have given themselves impact off the bench. Even though you're carrying a few injuries, you've still got some impact to come off that bench.
Yeah, definitely. There's good strength in depth within Colchester, particularly going forward. I put it out there for fans to describe the performance against Shrewsbury in one word. Emma said solid. James said it was inevitable, and Milo called it complete. How would you guys sum up the performance as a whole, just sort of briefly?
I think I wouldn't say complete because we weren't good in all phases. So going forward, we still didn't quite find it. The times we did. So obviously, Jack Payne's ball into Samson, like Glenn said, great first touch, lovely finish, and then a nice calm finish from Lisby for the second. So, but I think solid does sum it up. I never felt it. Really felt like a 0-0. It was like, oh, if we don't win this, what an opportunity missed. But thankfully we did, and there were a couple of when they went down to 10 men, actually, quite deservedly. It was a bad tackle, and I was thinking Bishop went down, and sort of Macy called straight over to the physio, and I was like, oh god, Perry and Bishop in the same game, and thankfully he managed to play on. But yeah, they started sort of getting a few more set pieces, and it seems, I don't know if they brought the guy on as a sub, but does every team apart from us have a player that's got an absolute howitzer of a throw-in? They had some throw-ins, and then they had another in the second half that ended up on the far post. And Macy did really well, because you see he had to adjust and improvise, because he knew he couldn't catch it, and he sort of improvised a sort of two-fisted punch. So they had a couple of chances, but yeah, they had one in the first half, a header from a corner and a sort of cross-come shot. And after a bit of a melee in the second half, Powell did a really good block close in, but that was it really. And just going back to Shrewsbury and sort of the predicament they're in, saw a few quotes from their fans saying that was actually an improved display.
Yeah,
they're in for a long season, I feel.
Yeah. I suppose how I would look at it, Aaron, is textbook away performance. You know, it was a professional performance. You've got the job done. You've scored 2 goals. You've come away with a clean sheet. You've soaked up any pressure without any problems anything that Shrewsbury threw at you, and you've come away. The only blot on the copybook is obviously Ben Perry. But other than that, it is a textbook away performance, which every manager would love. 2 goals, none against, perfect 3 points. Thanks. We'll get on the coach and go home.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it sort of marries up with what Dave said earlier of, at some points we didn't get out of sort of third gear, and we still managed to grind out that result without necessarily pulling out all the stops in the performance, which bodes well for the rest of the season. If we can do that away from home, we're going to pick up points and we're going to climb the table, which is what we're hoping for. Just to round things off, Glenn, obviously from your perspective, you see it quite impartially and you see it from a media perspective.
Sure.
How do you feel Colchester are going to do this season?
Well, I think unfortunately, I'm going to say it's down to you being able to, whether Samson Tavide stays. If he stays, that is going to be a big plus for you. If you lose him and you don't get anybody else in, then you're going to be relying on inexperienced lads, to be fair, to get you the goals. And that was a problem last year. Defensively, you're going to be strong. You know that. I mean, your organisation that Danny puts in place, everybody knows their responsibilities. Everybody's focused and concentrated when you're out of possession. But I think it's all going to hinge on Samson Tavide. And if you can get somebody in, because I know Danny's spoken about getting somebody in, but that's without Samson either staying or going. So that would be great for Colchester if you can get another player in. I don't know if there's any names been bandied around. I just wanted to, as well as if it's okay, Aaron, I just wanted to touch. I know, David, you said about, and I noticed this about the end product from the wide players at Oxford. I mean, Akande had a couple of great runs and then kind of disappeared down a cul-de-sac a couple of times on the left-hand side. And it is, I think, at whatever level you're playing, and you hear it all the time, you even hear it at Premiership level, about that quality and decision-making in the final third. That obviously needs improving. Who would you play in your wide areas? With all your wide players, who would you play in those wide areas? Because I've always liked Oscar Thorne. When he's played, I've always liked watching him, and I've always thought he's done really, really well.
Well, he's been really direct. So I think Edwards is going to always start on the left, as he is at the moment. I mean, he's got that pace, he's explosive, his end product has really improved second half of last season. He's not really shown it yet this year, but he's just getting up to speed. But on the right, I think when Harry Anderson is fit, he will start in away games, certainly, just because of what he does for the system. The Cowleys know exactly what they're getting with him. It means, and it releases Edwards a little bit because, you know, half the pitch is solid going forward and going back, and let Edwards do his thing. But I think Oscar Thorne is definitely that sort of player as well, because defensively he's strong enough to do that role as well. He had been playing right back. I don't think he's not quite natural enough there to nail that position down, but he certainly could do in the future, a la we've mentioned a couple of other pods, Greg Halford back in the day. Yeah. Similar sort of profile of player. But at the moment it will be Edwards and Anderson. But depends where he sees Lisby. 'Cause I don't think Lisby played a couple of times on the wing last year when he was just coming through, when we were sort of down to the bare bones.
He started there at Doncaster, didn't he? That was his first
and at Salford
professional start. So he can obviously play there. And if we're looking at Kyrese Lisby being a starter, which is a whole nother conversation, whether he's a starter or a finisher, he's not getting in ahead of Jack Payne. So
no,
he's going to have to sort of adapt to playing on the wing.
Yeah,
I think if he wants to get a full 90.
And maybe even, you know, and I think because of the pace he's got, just having him as far up the pitch as possible, just that no one can, League Two defenders cannot defend high against Lisby.
No.
Which means there'll always be space for Jack Payne or, even Teddy Bishop moving up into that space. And I think, again, Williams has really tried his hardest in a tough role that's not his natural role. But it's because of that, because Williams is quick, but he's not lightning fast. He's not on another level. So I think just having Lisby might even suit him, because obviously the physicality isn't something that he'll be able to sort of match in League Two, but just having that absolute 5 yards extra pace than whoever he's up against can just create space more. So it wouldn't surprise me if, like Samson, if he needs a rest or he gets another knock, or even if he goes and we don't get anyone else in, it wouldn't surprise if he starts using Lisby just a bit more, just almost just constant movement. Might not always need to be a target man, but just always be occupying their defence. So, but yeah, sorry, a long way around to answer your question, Glenn. I think Edwards and Anderson at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's. And I think you're right with Lisby and Samson's the same as well. They stretch teams. They're looking to get him behind, so naturally defenders just drop off because they don't want to leave that space in behind. They don't want to get in a foot race with somebody like Lisby or Tavide. They really don't. And you're quite right. That does create space. Just that movement from the forward lads does create space in those little pockets for Jack Payne to deal with. I suppose in many ways, and going back to your question as well, Aaron, about how well Colchester are going to do, I suppose it's like any club at that level. They'll have key players. I'm sure you can pick out key players from Doncaster last year. If you can keep your key players fit, because you can build around those key players, but all sides will have 4 or 5 key players that you think you can't do without them. They've got to be playing. If you can keep those key players fit, then I think your squad has got enough quality in to build around those players. But I would obviously, and I'm sure you all would put Samson Tavide as one of those key players as well.
Yeah. Who else would you put, Glenn? Just looking out from the outside in.
I think obviously Tucker is going to be amongst that now. I think Matt Macy, of course. Matt Macy had a fantastic season last year, and it looks like he started in that vein again this year.
Yeah.
Jack Payne. Again, I suppose we're back to the spine that they all talk about, but they are key players. And I suppose in many ways defensively, you've got to add Tom Flanagan, who's had his critics, I think, in his time at Colchester United, but I think he's winning those people over now. And it was interesting what you said about he had 15 minutes. I did notice he had a rare up when the lad got sent off, didn't he, as well? He wasn't happy with the young lad. Was it McDermott? McDermott?
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a rare up with him as well at that stage. So obviously, he wasn't too happy. So I would have thought that little triangle that has been spoken about, Tucker, Flanagan, Macy, then obviously keeping Jack Payne picked because you've got nobody like that can do that job. And obviously your front lad, Samson Tavide. And I suppose in many ways you talk about him, and I don't think I've seen enough of Teddy Bishop to have a real valued sort of opinion on him. But certainly the way you all talk about Teddy Bishop, then I'm sure you'd have him as a key player in there as well. And I think you can build around that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's been a very good sort of roundup of the Shrewsbury game. Big thank you to all of you. Glenn, thank you very much for coming on. I hope to chat to you a few times during the season, if that's
Lovely.
okay.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Thanks very much for asking me on. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Glenn. Cheers.
Huge thank you to Si, Dave and Glenn there for getting involved and sharing their opinions and thoughts. And obviously we go in to another home fixture midweek under the lights at the JobServe Community Stadium, where we welcome Cambridge United. And I spoke to Jack from Under the Abbey Stand, which is the Cambridge United podcast, about how their season's gone and how he predicts things will go on Tuesday night. Back to the Beyond the Barside podcast, I am joined by Cambridge United fan and host of Under the Abbey Stand, the podcast for Cambridge United supporters. Jack, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for having me, mate.
Thank you for having me. So I've also done your podcast, so that is it's good when a plan comes together like that. So obviously the reason we're speaking is Tuesday night. Colchester United will be hosting Cambridge United. Battle of the U's coming up fast. I just want to talk about, to begin with, how your season started. It's 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss, plus a cup win. How are things going down there?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's firstly, first season back in League Two for a few years, and it was obviously disappointing last year to get relegated, but I feel like our time had come. And then you come here and it's obviously a bit of an unknown entity. There's quite a few new players through the door, and we, had a home game to kick the season off against Cheltenham. And got that win, which is kind of the most important thing. It didn't really matter too much about the performance. I think, looking at it, I think Cheltenham will probably be down there come the end of the season. But yeah, good to get past them. And then a very disappointing loss away at Swindon. We were leading in that game early on, and then kind of crumbled. Really fell apart in the first half, and then Swindon went further ahead in the second, and we just never quite got our act together. We really should have got something from that game. So I think there was a bit of a sour taste in the mouth from that. A good win in the League Cup against Bristol Rovers. I'm not sure that too many people were too invested in that game. I think we wanted to focus on the league, but good to get a victory in that. And then Saturday's game was a home game against Harrogate. A 1-1 draw in which we dominated the first half, and then conceded early in the second and couldn't get back into it. I think there's a lot of disappointment around that draw. No disrespect to Harrogate at all. They're established in this league, but I think we feel if we're going to have any chance of kind of being up there come the end of the season, those home games are the type of games you need to win. We dominated the first half. We had just an incredible amount of shots in the game, and it's kind of astonishing that we weren't able to see it out. And I think there's a lot of questions asked around mentality and the personnel we've got in there, and I think it really was one of those where it's the one that got away really. So I think it's an okay start to the season, but I feel like we've dropped points in positions that we could have taken them really.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of recruitment over the pre-season, do you think it's been as vast as Cambridge fans wanted it to be? I know obviously you've picked up sort of a big name in Dominic Ball, and Appere has started the season strongly, scoring 3 out of the 4 games that you've played. But I think Cambridge fans perhaps wanted more out of the window. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely fair to say. I think we're probably 3 players short of where we'd want to be. I think we're missing a forward. I think Appere coming in has been great, but Ryan Loft is our other kind of main option who isn't injured. Shane Lavery's injured, and we're still waiting for a confirmed date when he comes back. Ryan Loft is a target man who is a bit goal shy, if we're honest, and he was unwell on Saturday anyway, so it's all falling on Appere really at the moment. The other people who are kind of marked as forwards in our squad are more kind of creative wide players rather than out and out forwards. I think we probably need at least another centre back, or a kind of or reverse hard defender. Our captain Michael Morrison went off with a suspected broken rib yesterday. We've got Job, who's come back in, who's a youth prospect who's come through the ranks, and he's had a year out with an ACL and a long concussion break before that. So we're kind of looking a little bit like we're a little bit thin on the ground already, and we're 3 games in. So with the window still being open, I'd hope for at least 2 or 3 players to come back through. But as you mentioned, Don Ball, he's been a really good acquisition, and he looks like he's going to be a great player. Apare keeps finding himself right place, right time. He's got those goals, and the goals might not be pretty, but it's really effective. He's a very good kind of poacher in there. And then Pelly Ruddock, obviously a lot of kind of experience at Luton, through the leagues, so that should be someone who should come good. We haven't quite seen much from him yet, really, to be honest, but we're early days. So of those signings, there's some good ones. We're still waiting to see the best of Ben Knight and Ben Purington, I think. So there's a barometer of how well the signings have done, but we definitely feel like we need more before we can kind of feel like we're a full squad, really.
Yeah, definitely. I see what you mean. And obviously you've made those signings. You've mentioned a few of them that have made the contributions. In terms of the squad generally, I mean, who are the players to look out for Colchester fans?
So I think Don Ball is one who is, he's probably better than League Two, if I'm honest. He just looks like different gravy when he plays. He's a really kind of good midfielder, kind of joins the defence and the attack together, just looks very calm on the ball, calm when the opposition have the ball as well. He looks like he's kind of organising that, and just looks like a really handy player. I think you've got to watch out for Apare. I don't think I'd be doing my job if I didn't say a player who'd scored in 3 of the 4 games. He's just that type of player that will make a nuisance of himself for like 70 minutes of a game, but when the ball drops in the box, he'll be in the right place to put it in. So very dangerous player. And it'll be interesting to see if not that anyone particularly would listen to our most recent podcast, which will come out, in the late hours of today or tomorrow morning. You'll hear 3 disappointed fans about how poor we were in the second half yesterday, and just how we weren't able to see the game off, on Saturday. And it's so frustrating. So I think there's a little bit of frustration in the fan base, but I would look out for Kel Watts. Kel Watts is a centre back, from Newcastle, and one who's just coming into his own a little bit more. There's been a lot of question marks around him, certainly in League One, but he had a good game on Saturday, and he is just starting to kind of cut his teeth really at this level, and I wonder if this might be the level for him. So hopefully this is going to be a bit more of a kind of defining season for him. That'll be another player to look out for.
Okay, so there's plenty there to sort of choose from and have a little look at, and certainly plenty to be threatened by. In terms of setup, it seems like Harris has sort of favoured the 3 up top with the 4-3-3. Has that tended to be the main sort of formation?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, it kind of varies depending on whether we're going forward or or defending and how the game goes. As you said before, like a 4-2-3-1 kind of thing might happen with a McLaughlin and a Ball sitting a bit deeper. The worry that we are having ahead of Tuesday's game is kind of personnel available. Sully Kaikai went off with an injury on Saturday. And he would probably, most definitely feature in that 3. So it might be that Ben Knight has to move more central and Kachunga potentially comes in, but then we're also a bit light kind of throughout the midfield. So it might be that Liam Bennett, our right back, actually pushes further forward and James Gibbons comes in. So the shape might actually be defined more by players available than, a kind of the preference of Neil Harris. And I think that just highlights that we really need a few more people through the door, because he seems quite resistant to go with youth. We've got a couple of really promising youth players on the bench, and I'm not suggesting that he would start with them, but back end of last season, he didn't really call on them. And the start of this season, there's 2 of them who are on the bench and haven't played a minute yet this season. It seems like quite a lot of real estate to have 2 players on the bench and never use them. So we are limited by the kind of, by a couple of injuries and still players coming back from injury as well. We've got Corey Smith who's out and Shane Lavery, so they don't feature yet. So we're restricted by who's available, and it might be a bit kind of, he might try and use a bit of his kind of, football league now, thinking about Colchester being a more threatening side away from home. So we might see a bit of a change in shape to try and nullify the threat from Colchester and come away with something from the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a few sides have done that as well. They've sort of set up a bit more man heavy within the midfield and the defence, just to sort of try and frustrate the forward line. So yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise if Harris has clocked onto that and decided to go that way. It's quite similar with Cambridge. You've had a similar situation to what Colchester have had over recent years, whereby your manager and your director of football were both at the club previously as managers. This happened with Colchester, where Tony Humes was an ex-manager. He became the director of football for a spell. Steve Ball was a manager and became the head of recruitment. It causes a little bit of unrest, particularly in Colchester's case, amongst the fans, that sort of people that were deemed not good enough for a role then come back and do a different role. Obviously, Harris is slightly different. What's it been like for Cambridge fans having Neil Harris and Mark Bonner back at the helm?
It was quite strange how it all came about. I mean, Gary Monk, it was time for him to go, and a lot of people said that he outstayed his welcome. And then there were murmurings of Neil Harris coming back, because, of course, he left under a cloud in a way, because he left on a promise to the Millwall chairman who'd sadly passed away, and that's why he went back to Millwall. He said he'd made a promise to this chairman that he needed to go back to Millwall to try and keep them up. Ultimately didn't. And then, of course, we were looking for a manager, and then Neil Harris's name comes into it, and I don't think anyone believed it. And then suddenly him and Bonner get announced side by side. There's a press conference that they literally sat next to each other. And actually, I think it was handled quite well. I think the club handled it well, and I think the two, both Bonner and Harris, in that interview were quite frank about their time at the club previously. I think Bonner's time was up as far as management was concerned, and Harris's certainly wasn't. We were doing well under Neil Harris when he left. It was just, whatever happened. So I felt like he had unfinished business, and Bonner loves the club to death. He wasn't a professional footballer himself. He was involved with his club from very young and did coaching behind the scenes with that youth set up, and, made his name at Cambridge United. And so he cares about the club, very deeply. So I think that when they came in, people were pretty optimistic. They spoke a good game. I think people kind of realised the likelihood of them being able to keep us up was quite low last season in League One, and ultimately they weren't able to do that. But I don't think much blame goes on them. But now is when they are going to get stood up and counted, where they've had a summer together to make decisions on signings. And, I think there is a kind of narrative where some of the fans think they have a very similar attitude to style of play and setup, and people are a bit worried that the two of them are so similar that we're not going to be able to adapt or change the system. I don't think that's true. I think Harris is experienced and well versed enough in the Football League that he will be able to. I think football fans are so fickle, and we watched 46 games last year and won 7. So I think all of our fans are so tainted by last season. They're already getting a bit kind of nervous. I think we need to give them the benefit of the doubt and a bit of time. Get to the end of the transfer window. They both care about the club. I know that much. And ultimately Harris is in the more risky position. I think Bonner is probably there for a long time. I don't envisage, even if things go wrong for Harris, that Bonner will go. So I think it'll be a case of Harris kind of having to do the legwork and Bonner more work behind the scenes. But yeah, it's an odd one, but I think mainly positive. But there is a few people, who are still ready to be convinced. So yeah, but I think it's a great thing. And Neil Harris is a great manager at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, it's nice to hear you speak so positively, especially about Mark Bonner as well. I spent a little bit of time at Cambridge when I was at university, and Mark Bonner was there as head of youth development then, and that was about 15 years ago. So it does speak volumes for how long he's been at the club and how much he cares about the club. But obviously we're in the here and now. You're in League Two. You were in League One last year. You obviously said 7 wins last year. It's going to be vastly different this year, we hope. Where do you see Cambridge finishing? Because you're the team that people can't predict. I mean, Gabe Sutton said anywhere between 7th and 17th. So I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, and I don't think he's way off with that. I think that's quite accurate because I think I predicted us like 9th or 10th in our preseason thing, but then on someone else's like 13th because like it's massively reliant on the start, which is why I think people are frustrated about, the Swindon loss and Saturday's draw with Harrogate. I think it's also reliant on the next few weeks of the transfer window. I think that could really govern how well we do. But also it's because of the massive rotation of the squad, it is a bit of an unknown entity. Like, we shouldn't have this air of arrogance where we think just because we've been in League One for 4 or 5 years that we should come straight back up, because we know that's not how it works. We've seen teams like Carlisle, come down and go down again, and it will happen to other teams better than us. So I think there's a lot of caution surrounding us, and I think our aim should be the playoffs, really. I think generally that's what we should be aiming for. Whether we'll get it is another thing. I think I'll stick with 9th as a prediction. I think we'll be there or thereabouts, and I think you're right. I think it would be an absolute catastrophe if we didn't see, twice as many wins as last season minimum. So I think it's just a case of, getting used to this league. It's a lot different to League One. It's a lot more kind of, you've got a lot more chance of being involved in a promotion battle in this league as well. I think the top third of the league are kind of involved in it, and I think we need to keep that in mind. Don't get too bogged down in if we have a tough start. There's still plenty of time if you're down there at Christmas to get right up and challenging for the playoffs. So I think we need to remind ourselves what League Two's like, and strap in for a bit of a long season.
Yeah, definitely. It is a very long season. Colchester fans experienced that last year. We started very inconsistently and then had a big sort of surge towards the end. So it's certainly not within the realms of possibility for Cambridge. So going into Tuesday, what do you think? What's your score prediction, mate?
Yeah, me and you spoke earlier, and I think you made a good point. I think it'll be quite open. I think both teams. I think Cambridge will kind of be forced into being more attacking. I don't think we'll have the personnel to sit on a game for 90 minutes and try and absorb pressure. So I think there'll be chances on the break, maybe for both teams. Actually, I think it could be quite an open game. I think there'll be chances. You said both teams to score. I think the same. I'm going to go slightly more conservative. I think it's going to end in a 1-1 draw.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's fair enough, and it's been a bit of a theme for Colchester this season. So, 1-1's not a bad suggestion at all. It's been great to speak to you, mate, and obviously Under the Abbey Stand will have a Colchester feature. So, any Hughes fans listening to this, head on over to there afterwards as well. Cheers, mate. It's lovely to speak to you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you to Jack there for sharing his opinions on how Cambridge have started the season and where he thinks the strengths and weaknesses are and where they'll end up by the end of the season. It's very interesting. I hadn't quite realised the lack of depth within their summer transfer window thus far, although between time of recording and now they have made a new signing, so there could well be more on the match day as well. Obviously, it's not just the Cambridge United opinion that we wanted to get. I caught up with Si and Dave again to discuss how they thought the Cambridge United fixture. Welcome back to Beyond the Barside. I am joined again by Si and Dave to talk ahead of the Cambridge United clash on Tuesday night. We're getting these interviews done thick and fast, aren't we, guys?
Well, we're a brand now, Aaron. You got recognised, didn't you?
I did. I got recognised at the Smashing Pumpkins gig in Castle Park. He might have thought I was one of you, to be fair. You never know. It could have just been.
I don't know. You're much more photogenic than us, Aaron. So,
you're the one that does the work. You're the one that does the work. We just come in and talk for a bit. Then, like Dave said before, podcast appears out of nowhere.
Yeah, it seems really easy from where we're sitting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. But yeah, I'm going to try and this will come out on Tuesday, so that this is nice. People will be listening ahead of the game tonight against Cambridge. It's going to be an interesting game, I think. Cambridge United, obviously, they're a side that are recently relegated. They've won, they've drawn, they've lost, they've scored goals. And I spoke to Jack from Under the Abbey Stand, which is the Cambridge podcast, about how I thought the game would go. I think Cambridge are going to attack. They're not going to sit back because they've not got the personnel to sit back and do what Tranmere and Oldham have done. So similar to what you said in the Shrewsbury preview, Dave, there's going to be opportunities for us to to exploit space. And with having Jack Payne back and whoever we put on the wings, if Anderson isn't fit, it's going to be someone a bit more attacking minded. I think there's going to be goals from both sides. Si, do you want to kick off? How do you think it's going to go?
I think this is a very good sort of sum up of what we're going to get. We'll actually probably play better against the team that wants to attack because we could high press, win the ball, exploit the space, and have less worry about them just sitting behind the ball and harder to break down. So I think in a really weird way, a team that's more aggressive towards us will actually be easier to play against.
Yeah, it creates those pockets, doesn't it?
It does, definitely. And it's obviously we've got the confidence from the Oxford game, the Shrewsbury game going forward. They're still a bit of an unknown after coming down from League One, so they're still finding their feet a little bit. So I think, like you said, there will be goals on both sides, but I think we're going to have enough defensively to hold them to maybe 1, maybe 2 goals, and then for Sean to get 3, 4, especially with the fact Lisby will come on the second half as per normal, probably Sampson, and then you can have all that space for him to put the ball in behind, float the ball in, he runs onto it very much like he's done at Shrewsbury, and yeah, I think it sets up nicely for us. We can play to our strengths by counteracting their strengths.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And you spoke about, obviously, us having the opportunity to press high. That's one thing about well, there's lots of things about having Samson Tavide back in the team, but Samson Tavide does press in that number 9 role, and he puts pressure on the back line, and it allows us to keep the ball within the opposition half without it necessarily coming across to us and having to rebuild the play. So I think Samson definitely suits that style of play that we're hopefully going to get against Cambridge. I think the key sort of take home that we got from the Shrewsbury game, and there was a little bit of a couple of digs that came out on X, not necessarily aimed towards us, although we did hold this opinion, was that Kyrese Lisby came on, scored again, and he's really sort of put himself in the starting lineup, so to speak. He's put himself in the picture, hasn't he? And lots of people are convinced that he'll start. He's a starter from now on. Both of his goals have come from the bench, so I am interested to see what you guys think about that.
I don't think at the moment he's a starter, and I think he's ahead of schedule, I think, from where he thought he might be, certainly where the Cowleys thought he might be. And the atmosphere that the Cowleys created in the squad, with everyone has their role, everyone understands where they're needed. And I think he seems from when you've heard him talk and just the way he holds himself on the pitch and how he plays, he seems quite level-headed, Lisby. So, and I get the feeling that he's aware of this. So at the moment, I think he's quite happy, understands his role at the moment. And, by Christmas, if he's got 10 goals and is ripping it up, but absolutely, he'll be a starter. But at the moment, this first third of the season, let's just keep him going. It's almost like a 1-2 punch at the moment. If Samson stays, Samson can bully him for the first 60, 70 minutes. And then, like you say, Si, they go, oh, good, Samson's going off the pitch. Then Lisby comes on and road runners past them. It's working at the moment. It's good for the development of both of them, to be honest. So, yeah, at the moment, I don't think Lisby is a starter, but he certainly will be, and he's developing brilliantly.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a case of saying that he's not good enough, because he certainly is. It's a case of sort of how best to utilise a player like that in our current system.
Yeah.
Si, what do you think, mate?
I agree with Dave, which says Lisby will eventually be first name on a team sheet, hopefully with us, or if he moves on. But at the moment, because he's not quite the polished player, I think the first 45, 60, you've got to have not just the pace and the ability, but also the tactical, when to go, when not to go kind of thing. Whereas in the final third of the game, you can have a player that wants to go, and just roam anywhere he wants. almost to the point where you can break formation and just let him say, right, go on then, go and play football, be a nuisance. Whereas at the beginning of the game, you haven't quite got the control or the fatigue in their defenders in order for a player to have the same effect. So, yeah, completely basically paraphrase what Dave said, that keep him doing what he's doing. He's doing it well. At the end of the day, he might not be starting, but he's getting goals. That's going to look so good in his record.
Yeah.
And to be fair, for a young player, what would you rather have? 10 starts with, say, 6 goals, or 10 sub appearances with 12 goals? You know, you're going to want this impact sub kind of reputation, don't you, to prove what you can do?
I'd take both, to be fair. If we had someone that could do both, that'd be incredible.
That's just greedy.
No such thing as greed, mate. No such thing as greed. So it does pose a lot of questions for the Cambridge game. Obviously, it's 2 games in a week, 2 weeks in a row. So there's going to be a degree of rotation, you'd imagine, to keep players fit, to keep players fresh, and manage the potential injury risks that we've got. But there are some key positions that potentially are unfilled. Obviously, the main one is Ben Perry. We spoke about it with Glenn Pennyfather earlier in the podcast. I'm going to ask you both specifically who you'd put in that role and why. Si, who would you put in the Ben Perry role and why?
So for me, it would be Ronnie Harvey. Purely because he's come in there before and hasn't really put a foot wrong. So he's got maturity to play with a head that's massively above his age. Also, I did mention Tucker doing it, but then I think everyone made a very good point about not breaking up the back 4. And it then leaves Arthur Reed on the bench. No disrespect to Arthur, he's been brilliant when he's been coming on and what he's been doing. But with Teddy Bishop maybe carrying a knock from that tackle at the weekend, and Harvey being a bit younger, maybe doesn't have the sort of, not confidence, but almost the mental concentration to last the 90. Having Arthur Reed in one of those 2 spots to come on and change the game would be ideal. So I think that's what I'd go for. Ronnie Harvey.
Yeah, cool. What about you, Dave?
I think it will be Arthur Reed, just because we all know the reservations I think us and other fans have about Reed and Bishop together. Very, very similar players, but it probably helps out Reed coming on so early and getting those minutes with Bishop.
Yeah.
At the weekend, and against, frankly, a poor team. So Cambridge will be a much different challenge. So it may be that if it's not quite working, something changes. Maybe absolutely, Sire, like you said, the energy of Harvey seems to be an intelligent footballer as well. But I just don't think, with where we are, Arthur Reed's an experienced player now.
Yeah,
he'll know the role he needs to play, and it also, his passing range as well. If he has to sit deeper, it's almost tailor made for him. That right, if he can really step into it and get to show more of a nuanced approach to the off the ball side of it, which I'm sure he can do. And I think he'll definitely start. But it's interesting. So you mentioned about rotation, Aaron. I don't think it'll be that much different. Obviously, Perry, I think it might be. Apart from, I don't think Gordon will start.
No,
I think Thorne might have done enough. Anderson, with Anderson's record, and like we said earlier, he did take part in the warm up.
Yeah.
But if there's any risk with him, I don't think he'll take it. So I think Thorne might start, because he was really direct and really good when he came on.
So would you say that the two possible changes from the Shrewsbury game will be Arthur Reed or Ronnie Harvey in for Ben Perry, and then maybe an Anderson or a Thorne coming in for J.K. Gordon?
Yeah,
everything
definitely.
else will broadly stay the same.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Aaron, I keep cutting across you, but the Bishop didn't play against Oxford. Well, yeah, he did take a knock, but he didn't seem to have any issues afterwards. I mean, I know Mr. Young came on, but the game was won then. So I think that's just to protect him. And yeah, I mean, Payne and Sampson just played the 45, so I don't think there's the need to rotate at the moment. I'm sure the back 4 will stay the same.
Yeah, they've got to.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there'll be those two changes, sort of both enforced in a way. Obviously, Perry's injury and just Gordon. Just unfortunately for him, he just didn't deliver.
But obviously, looking to tonight, Tuesday, however we want to wear it. It's always weird when we speak ahead of time because it's not live. Sorry to break the fourth wall. And we're all wearing the same clothes that we wore when we spoke to Glenn. That's strange, isn't it? Si, you're still in A&E. That is incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, waiting times go through the roof now, aren't they?
It's mad. It's crazy. We've had a whole nother interview in between then. It's unbelievable stuff. But how do you think we're going to get on? What do you think the result is? Final score, what do we say?
I've got a feeling we're in for another draw. But I can see it being more of a complete performance than we had against Oldham and Tranmere. So I can see it maybe a 2-2. Yeah. And I think Cambridge are a decent side, and it'll be a good test. If we can get a win, if we can get a relatively comfortable win, convincing win, I think that'll really show that we've kicked on in the season.
Chucks a marker down, doesn't it?
Yeah,
definitely beating Cambridge.
Exactly, but a draw, if we get a draw, sort of that, we're continuing just to creep forward without being beaten.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a draw.
Yeah, I think from speaking to Jack from Under the Abbey Stand, they're depleted at the moment. They've had injuries. They haven't necessarily bought in excess during the window. I listened to their interview with Mark Bonner and their CEO, whose name escapes me. I think it's Dundridge. Obviously didn't listen very well, but they very much spoke about how they wanted to build from their youth system and almost have a model similar to Colchester where we bring these players through and then sell them for profit. And that doesn't necessarily mean sell them as senior players. They could go at 16 and they've still made a profit by selling them to, your Chelseas and your Arsenals or whatever. So they've got that element to them. But then Jack sort of suggested that Neil Harris isn't interested in the younger players. So there's players that are on the bench that just aren't being used. So I think they're very rigid in what they can do at the moment. And if we're going to beat them, now is the time to beat them. They're depleted. They've got key players out. They've not finished their summer transfer window. So that really a Neil Harris side is probably at its most vulnerable now compared to towards the end of the season. So I think we'll win 3-2. I think it's going to be high scoring. They're going to give Payne the pockets of space that he needs to just run the show. I think Sampson's going to do really well against a fairly new centre-back pairing with Parrington and I forget who the other one is, but they're recently sort of joined the club. So, and then you've got Kyrie's to come on and tear them apart.
I think you're right there. I think it will be, I think we're going to, what Dave said there, a really good, complete performance. So I agree with you, Aaron. I think we're going to win by a 1-goal margin, whether it's 2-1, 3-2, something like that. But yeah, I think it's almost our game to lose with how they are with their setup and how we are with ours.
Yeah.
Us being at home as well should count and be key.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm feeling positive. Whether it's sort of the rose-tinted glasses from the 3 points on Saturday, I don't know. But I think we're going to get another 3 points at home to Cambridge. I'm Si, Dave. It's lovely to chat to you both, and I'm sure we'll talk again ahead of the Saturday fixture too.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. There you have it. That is another episode done and dusted of the Beyond the Barside podcast. If you enjoy what we do, please do leave a review or a comment on the various platforms that you listen and watch this podcast on. It would also be nice for social media to share on social media, Instagram, X. We are on there. If you like the podcast, please feel free to share with friends, family, enemies, whoever you want to share the podcast with. And we are also on Substack. substack.com/Beyond the Barside, which is a written format that we share different opinion pieces on. The vast majority of the opinion pieces come from the fans themselves, so it is a nice interactive way of engaging with the podcast. So, thank you very much for listening, and we will be with you again ahead of the Barrow game. Cheers.